So is it safe to say everybody has spirit guides?
Yes, I haven't come across anyone that doesn't have them.
One of the interesting things about life that I got from Dr. Meadows' book and from your book was that there's this kind of duality. On one hand, you have this idea that, that there are unseen forces that are kind of taking care of you, and that you shouldn't interfere. You just kind of be the spirit, follow your bliss, go inside and do what makes you happy, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. And then there's this other kind of philosophy, law of attraction, where it states that you're putting vibes out into the universe of where you want to go, and you try to attract those visualizations, whether it's an amazing writing career or amazing love life or whatever that could be. Can you speak a little bit about that duality between just letting things be versus directing things in a kind of visualized way?
Right, so it's two sides of the same coin.
Right.
So if you're holding the coin, you have both of them anyways. You have to do both, I believe. And what I've been taught is stay present, stay in the now. Do your work honestly now, and make sure you're aware of where you're walking, how you're talking, how you're presenting yourself. Not cautiously, but being aware that you're doing it honestly. And through that, you can manifest or create the blueprint of this external or forward-driven. To use the term forward thinking or planning in the future, where we're going back into a trap of linear language. And we're trying to use, as humans, linear language on this energetic experience that's not defined by linear. So for us to think that we can only do one or the other side of the coin is it's a false. It's not a true concept, but it works for us as being humans. We need to understand that we are capable of doing all things at once, and there really are no true contradictions. But we do that in a human life so that we can measure where we are, we can understand how we are reacting in space and time, environment, people, status. You're talking about how do you do law of attraction, but how do you just let everything go and just do for you? Well, while you're in the moment, you have to let go of everything and just handle now that's coming at you. But you're using your intuitive thinking, your energetic thinking, some people might call it fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional energy, to build platforms that you're going to be coming into. You're actually doing both, but it's the language in which we use it. It's putting things into particular boxes that I think is doing an injustice to the whole energetic or subtle energetic world.
So let me throw out a scenario and tell me how correct this is, between the philosophy of just letting life be versus kind of directing it in a visualized way. So what you would do is you would maybe visualize what you want to happen. For example, let's say you want to get your book published and for it to do well. So let's say you're visualizing that scenario, feeling it, hearing it, whatever you can do to visualize that life. And then you let that go, and at that point you trust that it's going to happen. You're not always asking for it. You just trust that that's going to come in. Or are you constantly having to, every day when you wake up, visualize that type of thing and then let it go every day for the rest of the day? What is the balance?
Once you've created it, it's there. The more attention and energy that you feed it, the clearer it becomes. So if that's going to end up in some rhythm or ritual that you do, like every morning you think about it, it's fine. Or if it just comes with, I think about it once, I put it on a board, take some pictures of it, and leave it up there, then that's fine too. Whatever you feel is working for you best is what's going to work for you best. Some people have lessons in their life where their lesson or their contract, remember there's all these different words for it, but that they really chose to come into this life to be a participant. So to think about something or to manifest it energetically and then tap it onto a wall is not going to be good for them. They have to hit the pavement. They have to participate. They have to knock on doors, knock doors over, change people's minds. This kind of manifest and set it aside is not going to work for them. Everyone who comes into Earth as a human is only bound by their own set of rules. And when we start to make these isms, spiritualism, scientism, we're kind of putting lots of humans under one set of rules. And again, it's not fulfilling, because every single one is going to need to tweak or change to meet their own needs. It's incredible. It makes you think about the people who come to you and say, well, everything is pre-written, everything is destiny. And you have to talk back with them about the other side of the coin, which is free will.
So you talked about free will. In the book, you have this great metaphor where you talk about like planning a trip to Disneyland, and you talked about coming in before your lifetime was kind of like planning a trip, in that you could say, I want to ride on this ride, and I want to ride on this ride, and I want to go eat at this place. But when you're there, you might decide, well, okay, I want to ride this ride, but maybe later. I'm going to do this first. And so it was kind of comparing making plans versus when the tire hits the road, what you actually do. Can you elaborate a little bit about free will versus what you contracted for?
Yeah, the staying in the now is what allows our free will to be so strong. Because we tend to give up our rights to free will when we focus so much on the future and what our expectation is or what our goal is and what we have to meet. We rob ourselves of the opportunity to make a change. And in my understanding, the greatest kind of power we have as humans is the option to turn left or right at like any given moment. There's an inner guidance inside of us that says, this is my timing. This is when this needs to be happening for me. Because we all have those feelings, but we sometimes, I think most of the time, will tend to push them down so that we meet this external expectation, or that we can follow a rule to feel safe or accepted in a society or with a family member, or respected. And imagine if we harnessed our children in a way where we said free will is just as important as these other 5 senses, 6 senses. We could actually teach them these things. How wonderful and beautiful would the human beings on Earth become? But free will is so important. It should be taught, and it's simply just based on that inner guidance that you have. Call it a gut reaction, a visual reaction, but it tells you that you're in the wrong place. And for most of those heavy thinkers that we have in America, these corporate business people, I tell them, do you recognize when you're uncomfortable? And most of the time they're like, well, I guess it has to be really uncomfortable, because they'll see as being slightly uncomfortable as a challenge, something that they can go up against and gain their power and make it better. And I said, listen, when you feel uncomfortable, this should be your huge alarm that goes off, sounding off everywhere that you have allowed yourself in a place where it's going against yourself. It's going against what you innately came to do, whether it was a conversation or a big conference or, a signing of a deal. When you're uncomfortable, slow down, look at why, and use your inner guidance, use your free will to change the feeling in the room, change the atmosphere so that you can get what you need out of the experience.
When you talked about being uncomfortable, and how would you, so someone might be uncomfortable, say, public speaking. How would you differentiate that from something that's a fear that someone needs to overcome versus something that is just not a good idea for them to do because they're going against themselves or what they've come here to do?
Right. Is it a fear or is it something you should respect, right?
Right, exactly.
If we really look at it, at the way we're presenting it, fear is the lack of love or the lack of light or not being able to identify what the experience is. If it's valuable for that person to have that experience, if it's really going to give them gain, then I say yes, step into that dark night, go forward, get your flashlight.
I see, yeah.
But if it's not going to give you that gain, emotionally, physically, whatever it is that you are looking for, then you're pressuring yourself to follow through with something that doesn't resonate with you. And you need to speak up and say, somebody else needs to give the presentation. I have all the information. I'll do the handouts. I'll do whatever it is. I'll do the intro and then have them come in and teach it.
I see.
So, yeah, honoring oneself.
Right, exactly. One of the most moving stories in your book I found was about a dog named Moose. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the nature of animal souls. Do animals come in your readings, and do you see animals in the past?
Yes, they do come. They do want to say goodbye. They want to make sure that you're okay. It's as pure as communicating to children who pass away early. You know, they just have this compassionate level and knowing that I believe exceeds kind of the adult experience, because we're so full of what's the right step and everything, that our animals don't have that. They really want to engage. And they have shown up in readings. I had a reading with this Latin woman who was on the phone. All I had was her name, so I don't know really where she's from, but when she called in, she says to me, "Oh, I need to speak to my Chico. You need my Chico." And I said, "Okay." I'm looking across the room. I have 4 people standing. I was like, "Oh, we have Chico. It's got to be one of these." And I'm asking one by one, and these spirits are telling me no, no. And then they kind of split apart, and there's this tiny little thing on the floor, like the size of my kitten. And I'm looking, and I said, I'm sorry, ma'am, can you please just think of Chico, and I can, connect with him better. And so she says, "Yes, Chico, come talk to me. I love you." And there's this little thing again. So I look down and I say, "Are you Chico?" And this thing says, "Yes." And I'm like, "Oh, ma'am, Chico is," because I'm thinking I'm about to give her some crazy news. Chico is very, very little, and he's not human. And she starts laughing. She's crying. "My Chico, I love my Chico. He's my dog." I was like, "Oh my God, of course, right?" And I said, "He looks like this tiny min pin chihuahua." And believe it or not, he was a min pin chihuahua.
Wow.
That blew me out of the water. I got goosebumps. I was like, whoa, whoa. Chico went on to describe everything that has been happening in her life. Her boyfriend, not to get married, all these things, and then begged his mother, "Please, please, please, don't hurt the dog up the street. Mommy, I dug out of the fence. I went 3 houses down to the chocolate dog. They keep his food outside. He was eating the food. The chocolate dog grabbed Chico and killed Chico. And the owner just didn't know what to do, so she carried Chico's body down and put the body in the yard, and he bled to death." And the woman is sobbing, and she goes, "Jamie, I came home from work one day. I had no idea what was going on, and my Chico is in my front yard, blood everywhere." And Chico is saying, "Please, Mommy, please don't hurt that other dog. It was my fault." Like, Chico knew he was doing something bad. He knew he shouldn't have been in that place, and was really able to give her peace. She knew exactly what happened to him. She later sent me an email and confirmed, about 4 or 5 houses up the way, there's a chocolate dog, and they feed him outside. And she didn't press charges. She didn't do anything. She let it go. She listened to Chico. And she took her little dog's advice on her relationship and her life and her career. And I tell you one thing, when I came home, I have 2 cats, and I sat down with my cats, and I was like, "I love you so much." And I started really just talking with them. I was like, "Oh my God, you know my whole story." Like, it didn't dawn on me that they have that capability and that memory and that input just as valuable as I would have on their lives, they have on mine. And so I apologized, and we have a newfound relationship with my cats now.
So in the case of Chico, when he went out and ate that chocolate dog's food, was it a cosmic accident? Was he, in terms of from a higher level, did he want to cross over?
He said he explained it to her as being an accident, and he was very apologetic. Yeah, he knew not to do it, but like he said, his mom, he did it anyways, and it was an accident. He shouldn't have gone.
So one of the things that blew me away about your book the most, I think, and I've read several books about the afterlife, and they refer to the afterlife as home. And I've read a lot of descriptions, but your description of the afterlife was the only one that made me feel homesick. I mean, to my core, to my heart chakra, like, wow, I know what this is like. Mm. Can you talk about that experience where you were kind of taken into the afterlife and kind of given a tour of what that was like for you?
Amazing. I didn't talk about it for days after because I didn't know what to share with people. I didn't know if it would sound crazy, but I was doing a session with a woman at my home, and I left my body so that a spirit could come into my body and communicate to the woman. And when I left my body, there was a woman standing there in spirit, and she asked me if I would come with her, if I would follow her. And I said yes. The only way I knew how to describe her was like Xena, is that her name? The princess warrior?
Right.
So awkward. Like, that's not something that I fantasize or think about. I'm not attracted really to that era or that time frame, but that's the closest that I could put. She was very strong. She was built well, and asked me to follow her. It was like the walls in my room started to disappear. I didn't travel up and away. I didn't, vanish like that, but where I was disappeared, and it began to change, almost like a fog rolling in a way. The clearest thing that I remember about it today is her telling me to go, and that she would let me know when to come back, that I would be able to go explore. And there were colors that don't really register here. I would call it green, like the grass. I would call it green, but it just, it was so much more than what our color is. It makes our color look very two-dimensional. This green glowed. It had a force to it. It had a life to it. It was different. And there was organization to this place. There were other entities. There was a sense of purpose. People were moving and traveling and coming, not in cars. There was no sense of electronics or things of that nature, just mostly beautifully colored nature. And there was a building made of glass, and it had these huge steps that went up to it. And I knew I wanted to get in there, but I couldn't figure out how. There really wasn't a door, there wasn't a handle or hinges, and I was watching these other people do it. And finally, I received help on how to get in, and my directions were pretty much, if you would just think about what you're wanting to do or needing to do, that it would happen for you. And then you start to realize that's how you even got where you were, because you weren't walking, but you knew you were traveling some distance, but you couldn't sit there and measure, I just went 2 blocks. That kind of awareness was eliminated. And I'm in this very big building, and it has an organization to it, like a library would. Books, things are lined up. Information is lined up in certain categories. And I was told to think of my name. So I thought of my name and began to move forward, move up. And there weren't stairs or elevators, escalators. It was just kind of, you arrived at where you were. It might have been 4 stories up, a story down. It didn't really matter that there wasn't a floor's surface, or those things didn't come across your mind. And there was my name, and I pulled the papers out. It was rolled up, and I rolled it down. A lot of it was all blacked out. I thought it was so disappointing. I was really expecting, yes, to read all these things and, know stuff. But just holding it, I knew that I was being documented. I had more to me than what I was living at that time. It was a phenomenal feeling. It was this enlightenment in your heart, not so much in your head. And I remember putting it back and thinking, how long have I been here? Like, I couldn't judge, was I here for 2 minutes, 5, an hour? And I started to panic because I remember this woman told me she was going to come get me when it was time to leave. And I started to realize I don't want to leave. And I come out of the building, and I'm in the beautiful trees, I guess you would call it, the gardens, the landscape. And there she is, and she's telling me to follow her, and I'm telling her no. And next thing I remember is looking at the top of my head, my hair. And I'm thinking, God, my hair's not blonde anymore. It's turning brown. That was like a weird thought that came. And And then she was directing me to get in, and I thought, no way. I spread my arms and my legs, like I got as big as I possibly thought I could get, because, you know, if you try to put a cat in a cat carrier and the cat throws its arms out, you're not getting the cat in there. So I thought I had her beat, and she shoved me back in, and I woke up gasping, and I looked at the woman across from me, and she just had an experience with her loved one, and I was bawling my eyes out. And I was just like, none of this matters. I was like, none of this matters. I don't want to be here. I started taking the barrette and the headband I had in my hair off. I took my little sweater off, and I just wanted to push everything away in my life. It made no sense why I was collecting these books. Why did I have a couch, a rug? Why was I wearing clothes? It was so shockingly butting against what my goals were in life. Like I took pride in that couch that I picked out and that rug, and now I didn't want any of it. And it took me about 3 days to really adjust, and I started talking about it, and I learned that people in trance state can transcend into home, and I thought, my God, I want to do that again. And I started asking and begging at night, please, please take me back there. Please, I just want to see it.
Just to visit.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing. Never been back again, ever. Wow. And I thought because maybe it was my poor behavior of not wanting to return and kind of acting out. But if that is really the place that we are going after this, I was totally fine leaving my family, my husband, my dog, my life. I was completely okay. I knew that it would absolutely, without a doubt, all be perfect. There was no sadness, no tears, no nothing about any of that. And when I think about it now with children, my heart starts to panic a little bit. Why would I ever feel comfortable in being away from them? And then it comes over me again. That is where I am supposed to be one day. But I know that when I get there, I won't have this sadness that what we think on earth is death or separation.
What was so compelling about being there?
Oh, everything was accepted. There were no roles. You weren't guided by politeness, manners, or a career. You could really, if someone were to approach you in this place, you would present yourself for exactly who you were, not what you did, not where you lived, not what you drove. And communication, you couldn't warp it. There was no miscommunication. It was like a merging of energy. And in that moment, you would obtain all the information from that person that you needed to know or wanted to know. And it was freely given. There was no, hey, this is my secret. I don't want you to see that. Everything was out in the open. And you don't realize how much of a burden it is on earth to perform this way until you're living in a place that doesn't have it. And then you realize, oh my gosh, it really takes a lot of energy to be me.
Right. When everything about you is exposed, is that uncomfortable or is that freeing or some combination thereof?
I would have to say it's freeing and it's very powerful.
So there's nothing disconcerting about it. So it sounds like there's still a little part of you, even years later, that still misses that experience.
I do. I really miss it. And it's kind of weird to admit, but when I hear that people are sick or dying or, that someone's just passed away, there's unfortunately a little bit of jealousy that comes up for me.
Sure.
And then you realize, oh, God, why are you putting yourself into it? It's that person's journey, but I can guarantee you when it's my time, I'll be so excited.
So how has having this ability changed your perception of death and how you've lived your life differently because of it?
I'm not afraid of seeing someone else suffer to die. It has given me the ability to be present with someone who is in that place. Also, an understanding of what am I truly responsible for here in this life that I'm hand-making for myself right now. And the answer really is that I am just responsible for myself. Even though I have these 2 beautiful children and I'm a parent, these children are just responsible for themselves and I of mine. And we're coexisting in this. It took me a long time to understand that I couldn't alter what was around me to fit what I needed. A lot of it was acceptance. And once you come across the concepts that life doesn't end on you and there is no time frame that you have to reach a certain goal, it is so freeing and you're able to look at every moment you have right now and actually say, oh, I'm going to be really happy about this. I'm going to be very joyful. I mean, I was washing the dishes this morning, just smiling and laughing. And then I realized, what am I doing? I'm just washing dishes. But I was just really genuinely happy. I had someone ask me, are you really happy or is that fake? And I said, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before. And I have to tell you, it's real. We should all have that joy of just being in your physical presence.
Well, one of the things that makes your story so powerful, your writing so powerful, is that you're telling stories versus just giving information. So you're probably familiar with the term when you're writing to show, not tell. And that's what your book does so well, is even when you were answering questions, you were always telling a story about your answer. And I love that there's a story where you're talking about, I want to say, how much privacy you have because all these spirits are coming in, and you said that you were in the shower and Maitland starts talking to you. It's like, hey, wait a minute, dude, I'm in the shower. And because you told the story, it made it so much more memorable for us. So I hope when you continue and you write your next books that you'll continue to do that, because that was just so effective.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Thank you. I will.
Well, thank you so much for doing this again. This is Brian Mercer for Author Magazine. I've been speaking with Jamie Butler, spirit communicator and author of With Love and Light, a true story of an uncommon gift.